here to break down these two games, sides, totals, props. We'll try and find some bets for you, but as you guys know, the playoffs can be tricky. Bryan, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, it has been tricky. I liked Colorado yesterday, and they played so much better at home all season long. The offense is so much better, and they scored one goal at home against Dallas. So, yeah, every game you had to treat a little bit differently. But we've got a couple of interesting games to talk about today.
Absolutely. And the injuries we're seeing in the playoffs and players getting, going out. And then, of course, what we saw yesterday with the top goal scorer for Colorado getting suspended for 6 months. It really is. You just have to expect the unexpected right now in the NHL. And speaking of which, here's the storyline right now. We'll paint the picture, guys. The Boston Bruins last year in the first round were up 3-1 on the Florida Panthers. Florida comes back and wins that series. Well, now the Boston Bruins find themselves in this exact same situation here, Bryan. I will admit I was cheering for Boston in the last game. I had no action on the game. I was just simply rooting for it. And the main reason is I'm not a Boston Bruins fan. I just want to see some of these series go a little bit longer. It seems like with this first round, we have potentially, a lot of 5 or 6 game series. I just want to see these be extended a bit. The Boston Bruins get the lead. They have a good first period, a good second period. They could not hold on to the lead, Bryan. And, of course, the Florida Panthers go on and get the job done and get the victory. Are they just too much right now for this Bruins team? And now Brad Marchand might come back in the lineup, but when he was out, you could certainly notice it. It just seems to me like there's just so many options for the Florida Panthers. The depth is clearly there. Do you look anywhere else but the home team here, or can the Bruins put one last good effort in?
Yeah, I'm worried about the Boston Bruins. You mentioned Marchand. He made the trip, but the word is he's probably not going to play. He may try to give it a go, but if he's not 100%, I don't know how much that's going to help him. But I don't like some of the quotes coming out of Boston. They've been blaming the referees. They're getting into it with the local media. They don't like, Boston's like, it's not quite New York, but they do really come after you if you don't play well. And they're coming after some of the players, and the players are biting right back. And, high quality players take account for their bad play. They don't run away from it. Boston seems to be blaming everybody but themselves right now. Going into last year, they were the best team in hockey. They get shocked in that first round. Now they come back and they say, okay, now we could take it back on Florida after what they did to us last year. They have not played well. And this Florida team, they went against my Golden Knights last year in the championship. They were banged up by that time and didn't get a chance to compete fully. This Florida team is on a mission, and it would not surprise me if they win this game. The only problem is I'm more of an underdog player. I prefer looking for the underdogs because I like the best payouts possible. But I can't get there in this game with Boston. But yet, I don't want to lay $2 with Florida. So, got to find some other way to play this one. Maybe you can inspire somebody to play a player prop or something. But from a game standpoint, I like Florida, but I don't want to lay that number.
And I don't blame you, Bryan. It can be so deflated, too, for a team, like I mentioned, for the Boston Bruins last game to be in the lead, to be, in the front seat of that game, to be looking so strong, to getting that good goaltending, and then bang, they get a goal scored on them. Another one, and then all of a sudden the game is over. And what's funny is if people have been betting the under or over in this series, you might as well just be taking the third period over in this series because that's where all the goals are coming. I mean, in the first period, we're seeing a ton of defense, and then second and third periods where all the goals are coming. I really like what you said there, Bryan, about blaming everybody but themselves. I was doing a show with someone yesterday, and we were talking about the Boston Bruins as a whole. And, between Carmine and myself, I know we made fun of the Maple Leafs in their first round troubles for a while, but for people that have been following hockey for a while, we all know the Boston Bruins have second round problems. I mean, last year it was a first round problem, but for a long time, Brian, this team has gotten through the first round, and then the second round is just like not good enough whatsoever. They get bounced. It's been a thing. So what's funny is of course some teams have their struggles in the first round, but if you're a team consistently getting to the second round and you can't perform over that hump, then clearly something is wrong. And then, of course, there was that really questionable play where it depends on who you ask, what you think about it, where there was Bennett cross-checked Coyle into the goalie, so the goalie couldn't move, and then Bennett scored the goal. You know, and that's the thing, Brian. Some of those plays kind of are worth being upset about. But at the end of the day, when you've got 8 shots and you're halfway through the game, how could anybody be upset? Right? I mean, that's really the thing here. Is that there, you know, you don't want to sound like such a cliche hockey fan, but when it comes down to it, this Bruins team, not only are they being outclassed offensively, they're being outclassed defensively. They can't get any shots off, and when they do get their shots off, they're getting blocked or they're missing the net. It's been very difficult for them to get it going. And you know, you talk about the Vegas Golden Knights with Bruce Cassidy. Don't forget, he was the problem for the Bruins. They fired him. He went on and won the Stanley Cup as a coach, right? Well, clearly he wasn't the problem. You know, Tuukka Rask, they you know, he retires. He's gone. Jeremy Swayman's here. He's playing super well. So clearly the goaltending wasn't the problem. And right now, Pavel Zacha not playing too well. Charlie Coyle hasn't really had a great series. You're without Brad Marchand. You pretty much have all the pressure on David Pastrnak. And meanwhile, for the Panthers, you just have so many guys. Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Kachuk playing super well. Tarasenko, he's like plus 135 every night just to record a point. And he's hit that, I think, 60 or 70% of the time. So they're just playing super well. But where I'm going with this here, Brian, and you know, I've been mixing it up with my totals on this series. I like the under in this game here. And I know elimination game, and I just spoke about the third period, and it, you know, empty net goals are certainly the possibility. But if there's one thing I've learned about sports betting, and we're always trying to learn in these the playoffs, is that you have to continue to roll with what you're seeing. Yesterday, I tried to catch a falling knife. I mentioned on the show, Colorado first period. Again, they're now outscored 6-0 in the first period in their series. Is that why Colorado's losing the series? Probably not. You know, they're completely getting outclassed, but that has something to do with it. And when I look at the Boston Bruins, you think back to their series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Brian, they didn't have to score that many goals to beat that team. They didn't. I mean, only 1 out of the 7 games did the Maple Leafs score 3+ goals. They scored 2 in all of them. The magic number for the Bruins to win was 3 goals. And I think just overall in this one, as long as they possibly can, the Bruins are going to keep this tight, keep this close. And for that reason, I'm going to play the under 5.5 here. I understand some might say, you know, we saw some goals. We saw Bobrovsky get solved. We saw Swayman get solved this series. And I understand that. But going into Florida, I just can't see the mindset for the Boston Bruins being, you know what, we have to open things up. We have to try and trade goals with the Panthers. I just don't think it's a good idea, Brian. So I'm on the under here. I think there's no other way the Boston Bruins can even stay close unless it's really a low-scoring game. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I like it. And I think I put both things you talked about. You talked about the third period being more high-scoring, and I can definitely see that happening in this game because if you've got Boston on their last leg, they're trailing going into that third period, they're going to have to make some adjustments. They would possibly pull the goalie early. This is a situation where I'm more worried about the third period than I am earlier in the game. It makes more sense for me to play the first period under because Boston's going into this one knowing they have to play very good defense to keep up with this Florida team. And Florida is a very physical team. They've got great defense themselves. So I could see this being more of a playing out situation early on. And then let's say Boston gets down by a couple of goals, and then they're going to have to make some changes that they don't usually have to make. And that's playing more offensively and trying to win that way because it is as you mentioned, a do or die situation for Boston. And when that happens, we've seen coaches in the past, if you fall behind early in that game, they pull that goalie real quick to try to get back in that game in the third period. That would be my only concern here. I like the way you're thinking, but I think the first period under may be the better play.
First period under 1.5. Avoid the empty nets. Avoid the empty nets. You know how they have the earn runs and run stat for a pitcher? It should be like earn goals and goals. I mean, it's not like it's actually a real goal against your under. I mean, it's an empty net. It shouldn't even count, but that's how it works with these totals. Quickly for some props, I will be taking McAvoy under 1.5 shots on goal. We'll look at Pavel Zacha to not record a point. He's been very quiet this series. I don't really think anything will change. Anton Lindell under 1.5. And we have to go over on Jeremy Swayman saves. I talked about it. If the under is going to hit, if the Bruins have any chance, we have to go with Jeremy Swayman to get a lot of saves there. I'm not sure if I said under or over there, but over on Swayman saves. He's going to get lots of shots against them. They're playing at home, this Florida team. They're going to get the last change. They're going to get the matchups that they choose. I think that Jeremy Swayman's going to need to have another dynamite game to try and keep his team in it. But Brian, I will most likely be sitting this one out unless I release one or two prop plays, maybe one of the ones I just mentioned there. It's going to be a tough game, and you really don't know what you're going to get with these two teams. So we'll see what happens, and we'll wait for some lineup information and some stuff throughout the day. But guys, comment below what you are betting tonight. Boston versus Florida. Is the series over? Let us know. We got a bunch of guys in the live chat. We appreciate you all being here with us. Is this series over? Because I'll tell you what, and I said it yesterday, I said it the game before, I have a hell of a lot more confidence Carolina can pull off the comeback than Boston. And I just think that looking at the way these games have played out within each series, Carolina's been right there in all their games. I don't think that Boston has been right there in all the games in their series. But hey, each game is a new game. So comment below, guys. We love having you here. If you're here on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, WagerTalk TV, producing all kinds of content every single day. It's a pre-recorded 5-minute breakdowns on MLB, NBA, NHL, and more. All right, Brian, you got the jersey on, man, and this team, they're playing pretty well right now. This Vancouver Canucks team, they got a great goaltender backing them. They played very well at home. They stole a game in Edmonton. What's the deal right now? What's your pulse on this series? Can the Canucks win another one here and really take control?
You talked about stealing one. Yeah, that was the first thing that I'd written down was, despite the 4-3 final score in that game, Edmonton was clearly the better team. Go to the moneypuck.com website, which is one that I always like to look at. They have a deserve to win meter, and Edmonton had an 84.3% chance to win that game. Take a look at the expected goals edge in that game. 5.91 for Edmonton, 3.51 for Vancouver. The Oilers are going to be starting Cal Picard in this matchup, which just came over the line a few minutes ago. I want to play Edmonton. I love playing teams that dominated the previous game and couldn't get the victory. That's one of the reasons why I like underdogs in hockey. You don't have to dominate the game to get the win. You just get one lucky shot, and he goes in, and the other team's fighting for the comeback the rest of the game, which is why I like the underdogs. And I think NHL, along with baseball, are the two big underdog sports. But I've got to like Edmonton here, but I don't want to lay this big number. Vancouver's already proven that they can win in Edmonton, and this is a team right now that has the feeling that they're a team of destiny. We didn't talk about it in the earlier game, but you mentioned Toronto. Toronto's a team that, in my mind, wins with offense. Edmonton is a team that wins with offense. There's good offensive teams in the regular season, but once they get to the playoffs, it's an entirely different game. And what worked in the regular season did not necessarily work in the playoffs. And if you've been going all season long expecting to win with your offense, and teams come out and find a way to shut it down, it really puts a lot of pressure on your goaltending and your defense. And that could be the situation we find Edmonton in here. So like the Edmonton side, but no way am I going to lay this number with Edmonton. I think they get the victory, but this Vancouver team, is a solid team that's played good defense, good goaltending all season long. Like the Edmonton side, but not going to lay it. So I'll be passing on this one also.
It really is a story. I mean, I was saying to you backstage about every year a third string goaltender gets going. No matter what team it's on, it just seems like a number one guy goes down, number two guy goes down, and Artur Shilovs has been the man for the Vancouver Canucks. Apparently, nobody even knows much about the guy. Rick Tocchet, the head coach of the Canucks, all he knows is this guy knows how to stop pucks. That's what he said. He said, this is all I know about him. He's a great goaltender. That's what he does. He plays his role very well. Brian, I want to read something out to you because I just thought this was so interesting. Looking at the game itself, the last meeting between these teams, the box score is incredible for me as far as the ice time. I know a lot of people have been talking about this. So Brock Besser, one of the better players on the Canucks, he played 20 minutes. JT Miller played 22 minutes. Lindholm played 17 minutes. Pettersson only played 19 minutes. Now let's go over to the best players on the Edmonton Oilers. Zach Hyman played 21:50. Draisaitl played close to 28 minutes. McDavid played 29 minutes. I mean, you've got some of these guys, some defensemen playing nearly half the game here, Brian. And that's the difference, is looking at some of these games, looking at how it was spread out. It's proving the point that a lot of NHL experts will say first lines get you to the postseason. The second and third lines are what win you the Stanley Cup. And for Edmonton, all throughout the regular season, if you have a human highlight reel like Connor McDavid, he can win you enough games. Draisaitl can win you games, but they need their secondary guys right now. Nugent Hopkins, let's be honest, has not been the guy over the last, not just couple weeks, but couple months that they need him to be. Evander Kane hasn't really been much for them. Their second and third line hasn't been there. So the question I raise is, do they separate McDavid and Draisaitl? I think they have no choice. You have to. If you're going to play those guys so much, you got to have them on different lines. I know the offense comes when they're together, and then maybe when there's a good offensive zone or often icing, you put them out there together. But one thing I'll say, Brian, before I throw it back to you, is take a look at the Oilers' scores during this playoffs. Right, their last game, obviously in the loss, they still scored 3 goals. In the previous game, they scored 4. In the previous game, they lost, but they still scored 4. Last game against the Kings, they scored 4. Game 3 against the Kings, they scored 4. And within the first 2 games against the Kings, they scored 4. So despite the great goaltending from Artur Shilovs, this team still knows how to score. And you said it yourself, they're an offensive-based team. Usually when I bet team totals, I want to get plus money. That isn't the case here with this one. Depending on where you're shopping around, the best price I've seen is -125 for the Oilers to get to 4 goals. When you watch this team, when you watch the Edmonton Oilers, do you really want to have anything but their team total? Do you want to even worry about their defense? Because I can't do it. I mean, if I watch the best part about a team total, if you watch the Oilers go down 2-0, you don't care. At the end of the day, you need 4 goals. It's all you need, Brian. And that's kind of where I'm going tonight.
Makes a lot of sense to myself. It would probably be something that I would agree on. You talk about the 2 big players in that offense and how many minutes they had to play. I've never played hockey in my life. Growing up in Cleveland, we really didn't have an opportunity to play hockey. But if you watch enough games, and it's funny because these guys are only on the ice for a minute 15 or whatever at a time, and you think, come on now, they could stay out there longer than that. But you take a look at them, once they get back to the bench, they're huffing, they're puffing, they're 20-year-old, 25-year-old guys in the peak condition of their lives, and it just tells you the effort you have to put in to play aggressive hockey in the NHL. When you've got these guys out there for long periods, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, that kind of thing, you know that's got to wear and tear you down. And just because you're on the ice does not mean you're going to have the same energy at the 20-minute mark as you did at the 10-minute mark. So that's a problem these teams that don't have a lot of depth have. The teams that have done very well the last few years in the NHL are teams that have 4 lines, and the guys on the 4th line are not only guys that will go out there and fight for you, which is a normal occurrence. You put a muscle guy out there on the 4th line, but these are guys that know how to bang the opposition and wear them out. If you don't have that line, like Edmonton doesn't have that, they don't go deep enough to have that. So everybody out there is just trying to score. They're not trying to wear out the opposition, but the opposition is trying to wear them out. And so anytime you've got a team that has to play your best players that long, I would think just the drop off on the play per minute has got to be way down because of that, is they just don't have the same energy in that regard as they're playing. So that's a team that, normally you have a lot of star power, your Torontos, your Edmontons. Everybody knows the goal scorers for those teams. They don't know the guys that are coming off the bench and blocking shots and knocking the other team into the boards. That's not what they're known for. So when a team plays a team that's physical and you got to play them that long, that is a concern. So I understand that. But Edmonton should be able to score on Vancouver here. They have the offense to do it. But tough game for me.
It's so funny what you said there, Brian, because I get it. And I've had friends, I've made it very clear before, like I've played a little bit of hockey, but mostly in my life, basketball was my sport. And a lot of people know that I'm a huge hockey fan. They'll love to watch it, love to handicap it, of course. But people they'll play basketball will say, these guys are out there for a minute 15 seconds. How are they tired? It's because imagine if you went out there on the basketball court and just ran as hard as you could for a minute and 25 seconds, like as hard as you possibly could, because that's what it's like. There's no standing in a corner on a certain play. There's no jogging up the court. When you're out there, when your shift starts in the NHL, you are literally going full burst, like the entire time you're out there, and you're on skates. There's no time. You're not just gliding around. You can't just stand in one spot. You're constantly moving around. So it is very weird to look at. I mean, but when you go out there and you're moving them like the way that they are, you really start to understand how they're so tired. Brian, another question we have to ask ourselves too, Stuart Skinner or Calvin Pickard? Do we see Jack Campbell? I don't think Jack Campbell's showing up, but apparently the decision's going to be made probably about an hour after we record this PuckTime episode, or after we finish this show here. But do you think they should change goaltenders? I think they should, just to spark the team a little bit. You don't think so?
I don't have. To me, changing the goaltenders, I'm not of the belief that certain goaltenders are great and certain goaltenders are lousy. I think you give anybody a chance at this level, they'll perform very well. We talked before the show about Vegas last year having 5 different goaltenders all season long. If you've got a good defensive team, it should not matter who your goaltender is. If you take a look at the goaltender rankings every year, yeah, you'll find 3 or 4 guys that are above everybody else. They're very good each and every year. But there's other players that they'll have a great year, and this is the fault of the Golden Knights this year. Is Aiden Hill had a great year last year in the playoffs. They gave him a 2-year contract, and then they don't even start the playoffs with him because he hasn't played well. Now you go into next year, nobody knows who the goalie's going to be. If anybody at this level could get a chance to play, they can do well if you got a good defensive effort behind them. I believe you had mentioned, I don't know if this was on the show or beforehand, about the players not even knowing the name of the goalie, and they just say, "Hey, we don't care who's back there as long as he's stopping the goals. We don't even know the guy." That's just the way you have to treat it. You can't depend on a guy saying, "Well, this is our goalie," and if he has a bad day, then you're screwed. You've got to be able to play a team game, and the teams that play the team game don't have to worry about the goalie each and every day like they do on other teams.
I'm with you. For me, it's more of a psychological thing. As far as the analytics are concerned, I know you follow that stuff. I have seen we have seen Stuart Skinner. He's given up close to 5 goals above expectancy So that's crazy in one series when we're only in the second game in Edmonton, fourth game. And I mean, think about it. How close every game in this series has been, Brian. If he makes one or two extra key saves in some of these games, this series could be tied. They could be winning. It is a big difference there. And of course, on the other side, you've got a guy that nobody even heard of until 2 weeks ago, playing extremely well. And that's just how it goes. I will say one prop bet that I really do like is Evan Bouchard to get an assist for the Oilers. You know, these defenseman props, Brian, they don't change the odds on them at all, like very much. It takes a lot more for the odds makers to notice defensemen playing well, I find, than forwards. And all three games in this series have gone over the total. So, you know, I talked about the team total, but maybe we should be betting just the full game. And as much as we're talking about goaltending, when it comes down to it, the Oilers still have scored their goals. It's just that there's been that one extra save made for the other team. But Bouchard's out there on the power play. And right now, Edmonton has the number one ranked power play. I think it's around 46, 47% in the NHL playoffs. Carolina should probably take some notes from that power play. They're looking pretty good. But Evan Bouchard to get an assist, he's the point guy. He's either shooting the puck on net for tips, he's passing it to McDavid or Draisaitl, he's passing it down to Hyman. He doesn't score very much. So if you take the point prop, it's way too chalky. You take the assist prop, you're getting a nice little price there. So that will do it for me, Brian, on this. Any more thoughts for you on this one? And if not, I know you have a promo code to share for us.
Yeah, I do have a promo code. Don't know exactly what it was. It was supposed to be on the screen, I think. But it's to save $50, I believe, on our package for the rest of the playoffs. So you can get it by going to my website right there. We are not going to have a play on today's game, but we will have more plays as the series goes on, as the playoffs go on. Off to a pretty good start in the playoffs so far, although, like I said, we did lose yesterday on Colorado. But one thing about the goalies, and if I was a coach, I would just get together with them before the playoffs start. Say, listen, we're going to be making some changes every once in a while. You start the game off. If you're playing well, you stay in there. If you struggle early, we're going to pull you. We're going to put the other guy in. The games are too valuable here. And as long as everybody knows that ahead of time, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. And the same thing could be said of the next game, you know, so you get a chance for that guy to play. So that's what I would do when it comes to this. I am passing on everything today. Nothing strong enough in baseball. Everything lined up basically where I thought it was going to be from a line standpoint. So not going to force anything. Was on a 9-1 run overall. Did have a losing day yesterday. Taking today off. We'll come back and get them tomorrow.
All right, Brian. And we do have that promo code for that's Playoff50. Playoff50 will take $50 off Brian's NHL playoffs on a great run across the board there, Brian. So wishing you the best of luck and moving forward here with the NHL playoffs, MLB. We're getting closer, man. We're getting closer to just baseball time. But this guy's happy because in less than a month, the Canadian football season starts. And I always joke, Brian, all the CFL experts will show up out of nowhere. All the newly renowned CFL fans will just pop up out of nowhere. I'm actually the guy that follows it all year round, all the trades. I'm looking forward to the season. I've been following it heavily, guys. So if you want to join me on my CFL season, you can get that package up right now, early bird special, and we'll throw in the remainder of the NHL season for free. So CFL season, 3 straight profitable years, 10-2 plus 40 unit run on the 5% plays. Even in years where the regular plays weren't great, the 5% plays have been consistent and steady. We'll try and make some money again this year in Canadian football. Thanks for watching, guys. On behalf of Brian, I'm Andrew, wishing you the best of luck tonight. We'll see you tomorrow right here on PuckTime.